Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic. It was the summer of 1985, and the place was Corner Brook, Newfoundland, Canada. I was 7 years old, going on 8. I was spending the evening at a friend's place, and at the time his parents happened to have First Choice Super Channel. Each month, First Choice Super Channel would play a roster of movies. Then the next month came around, it would play a new roster. Well, this one evening, my friend's dad was watching one movie in particular. That movie was David Lynch's Dune. Up to this point, I was very familiar with Star Wars and Star Trek. But what was this Dune thing? It seemed so different and strange from those other science fiction films. It took me to a world that really seemed alien. It gave me a completely different science fiction flavor from both Star Trek and Star Wars. After seeing the film, it sat quietly in the back of my mind. I developed this low-key fascination with the movie. Over the years, I'd always check out the cover art for the film whenever I made my way to the video store to get a movie. I'd get tempted to rent it, but would usually choose something else. Until one day, when I was in my early teens, I decided to give it a second viewing. The movie didn't quite grab me like it did when I was 7. I was older at this point and not as impressionable. Still, I thought it was okay, and visually it was still interesting to look at. I would see the film one more time while I was in my teens, when my older brother rented the movie one weekend. Upon this third viewing, the movie grew on me quite a bit, and would also learn something very important up until that point I didn't know. That David Lynch's Dune was based on a science fiction book, which my older brother read when he was a teenager. You see, up until that point, I thought Dune was just this offbeat 80s science fiction film. I didn't know it was based on a science fiction novel. And not just any science fiction novel, one of the best-selling science fiction novels of all time. The next time I'd see David Lynch's Dune, I'd be in my early 20s. At that time, I was really into collecting movies. DVDs were still a new thing, and I was obsessed with hunting down all the movies I had seen as a kid. Movies like Terminator, Crawl, Alien, Blade Runner, and Dune. This is where I really became a fan of David Lynch's Dune, when I had my own copy of the film to watch on DVD, as I could watch it anytime I wanted, and could skip around to my favorite parts of the movie thanks to the DVD format. However, I still had not read the book at this point. Most of my early DVDs, including Dune, I had purchased through the Columbia House DVD Club, which was a mail-order subscription service. Through that, I discovered the Science Fiction Book Club, which had the same mail-order subscription model, and through them, I finally purchased a copy of Frank Herbert's Dune. It was a hardcover Putnam edition that I still have to this day. I read the book, and I was hooked. From the first read, it became my favorite science fiction book, which up until that point was Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey. From there, I went on to read the follow-up books, and then read the books by Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. I would go on to reread the original Dune 4 more times over the years. My Dune fandom had been fully realized. The sleeper had awakened. Getting to know Frank Herbert's Dune and going back to watch the '84 Lynch film, I could now see the flaws and understand why it isn't a good adaptation of the novel. With that said, I will always love the 1984 film despite its flaws. It was, after all, my gateway drug, as I like to call it, into the world created by Frank Herbert. Even with its flawed special effects, I still think it has some amazing visuals. And with that 1980s special effects aesthetic and musical score, I find the film has this almost dreamlike quality to it. Combined with David Lynch's style of film direction, this gives the movie a unique presence from other science fiction films at the time. The costume design for the film, I think, is really well done. I love the costume design for Fade and Raban. It has this sort of medieval look, but otherworldly enough that it doesn't look out of place in a science fiction setting. The Emperor and Atreides uniforms, along with the Bene Gesserit costumes, all still hold up to this day in my opinion. I don't think the costume design has really dated. If anything dates the film, it would be some of the 80s hairstyles. Finally, when it comes to the costumes, the standout one is the Fremen stillsuits. It was one of the things that really caught my eye as a kid. It has this ominous look to it for something that is the main garb for the good guys. It has a somewhat gothic look, with it being all black combined with an anatomical design. Costume designer Bob Ringwood was the one who designed the still suits for the '84 film. He would go on to have a hand in the design of the Batsuit for the 1989 Batman film. Once that connection is made, the parallels between the designs are obvious. It's a great design, and one of my favorites in science fiction. It is also one of the things about the '84 film that has yet to be beat, even by the new Denis Villeneuve film. The '84 film still has the best looking still suits. Another area in which I think the 1984 Dune film still stands on top over the newest adaptation is the musical score. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Hans Zimmerman's score for the new Dune movie is a good score, and it really complements the images on the screen. It helps tell the story. The score for Dune '84 does the same thing, except one key difference, in my opinion, is that you can't separate Hans Zimmerman's score from the film's images and listen to it on its own, where the score for the '84 film you can. Without the movie's images, just listening to it as a piece of music with headphones in the dark works, especially the prophecy theme. That one piece of music alone is an amazing piece. However, with the praise comes some things I think is wrong with this adaptation. I suspect a lot of Dune fans will agree with me and have the same criticisms. One of the big sins of this movie is how the weirding way is portrayed. And is a common criticism, David Lynch didn't want to do kung fu in space, so we got the weirding modules, where sound is now a weapon. Even though it's a piece of technology, it is hinted at in the film that there is a metaphysical aspect to the weirding modules. Now, this idea of sound-based weapons isn't a bad idea in of itself. I think it's actually a cool sci-fi idea. It's just not for Dune. And it's a bad portrayal of the weirding way. If it was another science fiction film, it would have been a cool thing. I've always wondered if the idea for the weirding modules came from this part of Frank Herbert's book. "Silence," Paul roared. The word seemed to take a substance as it twisted through the air between them under Paul's control. The old woman reeled back into the arms of those behind her, face blank with shock at the power with which he had seized her psyche. "Jessica," she whispered. "Jessica." "I remember your Gom Jabbar," Paul said. "You remember mine. I can kill you with a word." Another grievance with the film is the voiceovers that are present. This works for a book showing the characters' thoughts, but not a film. It doesn't bother me personally, but when my girlfriend watched this movie for the first time, she found this really annoying, and it was her biggest complaint about the film. However, the biggest sin that this adaptation commits is that the ending completely guts the message of the book, and what the film itself earlier starts to set up. Paul becomes a literal messiah with godlike powers, making it rain on Arrakis with just will alone. For me, this is my number one complaint when judging this movie as an adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. I can truly understand why and how someone who read Frank Herbert's Dune, who was familiar with the source material, went to see David Lynch's Dune and came out disappointed. I get all the criticisms that Dune fans throw at this film, so I never try to defend the film with respect to that, because I get it. For me personally, I love this movie. I love it because it's a weird 80s sci-fi flick. I loved this film before I ever read the book. This movie is what made me seek out the book. It got me into the incredible books that make up the Dune saga. Not only that, it made me a fan of David Lynch and made me want to seek out more of his work, like Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, and Lost Highway. When I watch the '84 Dune these days and spot all the little odd things David Lynch put in the film, like the heart plugs, weirding modules, and all his other little odd things, along with his almost psychedelic style of directing, it makes me wonder, what if? What if back in the 80s, someone gave David Lynch a film budget of $40 to $50 million and said, "Make your own science fiction epic"? What would that have been like? That is why I will always love David Lynch's Dune, and it will always be in my movie collection. And that's everything I have to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.